So whenever it's time to disrupt yourself or make a change, my framework of personal disruption has 7 steps to it. The first is to take the right kinds of risk, and that means that you're willing to play where no one else is playing. When we're going after a job, for example, we tend to want to take on competitive risk. There's 10 other people applying for this job and I really want it because there's 10 people and I'll feel really good if I get it. But you're actually more likely to be successful if you're willing to say, there's a problem over here that I think needs to be solved and no one's doing it. I'm going to see if I can create that job. So that's part of being able to change effectively, is take market risk. The second is to play to your distinctive strengths. Not only what you do well, but what people around you don't do well. Right. So if you're great at marketing, don't just be in a room full of marketers. Go to a room of people who are programmers or coders, because then you've got a strength that's distinctive. And when you feel strong, because you're playing to your strengths, you're willing to play where no one else is playing. So step 1 and 2. Number 3, embrace your constraints. We tend to think, if only I had no constraints, if only I had all the money, all the time, all the expertise in the world. Well, you look at the research, things like the film Jaws, that movie was successful because Steven Spielberg had constraints. He was out of time, he was out of money. And so it's actually the constraints that are going to give you the impetus that you need to be able to change. Number 4, battle your sense of entitlement. The belief that I exist, therefore I deserve. Entitlement comes in many guises, but at its very minimum, I would say it's a willingness to question why, when things start to go well, be willing to not say, I built this, I deserve for it to continue to go well, but what are we missing? And to be willing to ask those questions, which is really hard to do because we're comfortable why would we ask the questions. Sure. Number 5, step back in order to grow. You crouch before you jump, you bring a fist back to punch. Personal disruption involves moving sideways, it involves moving back. Sometimes that means making a lateral move in your career. It can mean taking time in the morning to study your craft, to get really, really good and world class at what you do. That step back can become a slingshot up your learning curve. Number 6, give failure its due. We've talked about that briefly. The up and the down are part of personal disruption. Recognize that failure is a learning, and that's part of disrupting yourself. And number 7 is to be driven by discovery. As a disruptor, you're playing where no one else is playing, and so it's a willingness to take a step back, to gather feedback, and adapt at the top of the curve, the bottom of the curve, and everywhere in between. And those 7 steps constitute the framework of personal disruption, and that will allow you to manage through change successfully.